it is my pleasure to introduce the hiring panel. So today we have with us Nikkanen, who is an interaction designer at Reaktor, and Toni Astala, who is a consultant at Columbia Road. And I wanted to thank both of you for joining us today and sparing time out of your busy schedule. It really means a lot for all new designers to really hear from people who are involved in design hiring. So thank you so much. And to start with, I would like you to introduce yourself a little bit and talk about your experience or your journey in design so far. And to start with, we can have Anu speak first.
Okay, can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, good, because I haven't been using Zoom so much and I have some issues with the controls. But
yes,
good.
Anu, if I
can...
may
yeah.
just sorry interrupt you a bit. I will try to record this now.
Yeah.
So I want just to tell everybody for your awareness that I will start recording to make the video available to participants that maybe haven't made it today. And
okay.
Just an FYI, if you don't feel comfortable, feel free to not disclose your video or just ask questions in the chat. So yes, the stage is yours, Anu. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, don't worry. So my name is Anu Nikkanen, and I've been working at Reaktor now for over 6 years, I think. And I actually started as a summer designer. I think it was in 2014. And I actually have a background in business. So I used to study at the School of Economics at Aalto University, and I had IDBM as the minor, and that's how I sort of got interested about human-centered design. And at some point I heard about Reaktor and how they do design, and that's how I got interested and decided to apply for a summer job. So I have experience of landing a job at Reaktor as a summer designer myself. Most of my work is UX design or interaction design. I usually work in a team with developers and design something that goes pretty fast into production. But then I've also done a few cases that's maybe more a concept or service design. And also I've been working for a few years in the summer designer recruitment. So that's why I'm here today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Toni, can we have your introduction now?
Yes. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's always nice to be able to maybe help people out or share a bit at least, hopefully something helpful. But so I'm Toni. I've been now 4 years almost at Columbia Road, and I started out. My first step in design was when I was studying in information networks, Aalto University, a while back. Not too long ago. I'm not that old, but still a few years ago. And there I tried to kind of dabble in the user-centered aspect, but then also a bit in kind of business side and calculations and stuff, and then a bit on the tech side, like trying to code stuff and so on. So, but I definitely felt the kind of my passions leading me towards design, and so that's where I focused on, and even though I have had some jobs here in between in like internationalization and a bit of sales, I'm now focusing mostly on design. And now at Columbia Road, I started 4 years ago as a summer designer, and since then I've also participated in like some strategy projects as well, and a bit of recruitment, some HR things, and well, whatever needs done basically. But as a designer, I'm more in the kind of UX and service design side of things than the UI and visual, although I need to dabble in all of these a bit, but I'm more of a service than a visual designer.
All right, thank you so much. And I think we have the perfect people to answer all audience questions here today. So to start with, I would like to know the beginning of the hiring process at each of your companies. And once again, we will start with Anu. So how do you initially screen the candidates, and what matters the most to you in terms of portfolio, CV, LinkedIn profile? So could you give us some more insight on that?
The current job or the job post or position that we have is summer employee, so that's what I'm maybe focusing most on now. But in that, we have a small team of designers with different kinds of backgrounds. Some are with more visual background and some more UX background. And so we go through the CVs and resumes and portfolios and browse through them. And we try to sort of see them against the job post that we have, what kind of criteria or requirements we have listed there. But most important maybe, or at least one of the most important things, is that we want to see and understand who the applicant is as a designer, what kind of design process they have, and maybe even more, well, it's interesting to see what kind of methods they have used, for example, in different kinds of projects, but it's also important to see why they chose these methods and how it's shown in the final outcome. So basically insights and learnings that are, personal insights and learnings. And if it's for example, a teamwork or group work, it's important to see that what the own role in the project has been. And if it's a UX position in particular, it's important to understand the user flow that is depicted. So rather than having just one screenshot or image of the user interface, it's better to use some or show the flow that the user goes through in one way or another. It can be a prototype or a video or a series of images or something, but to understand the flow. So I guess those are two important things. So the design process and the flow, and then maybe like try to explain your motivation towards the particular job and the workplace. And we don't have that much time to go through the applications. So it's best to be quite short and concise, but still explain something about the design process. I guess those are the most important things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing. Toni, would you like to go next?
Yeah, well, first of all, I definitely agree with Anu that for us also there's a lot of applications and there's not too much time. So first thing I'd suggest, like for anyone, to make it glanceable. So instead of walls of text, make it like easy to kind of catch what's going on in different phases, even if you don't read it through all the way. So like for me at least, I first usually look at the portfolio, then the CV, and then the cover letter. And for the portfolio, I'm typically looking for like what sort of a design process have they gone through and why. It's even more important to kind of come up like it's even more important that you go through the kind of design process that you choose is relevant for the project than what actually you do in each phase, at least in my opinion. And then another thing that I always look for is like if there's any sort of thinking towards why do you think that if you, for example, if it's a cool project that has some company as a client, or if it's even a personal work project that has some sort of a client type of thing, or some organization that you're doing it for, it's always interesting to see if you've thought a bit about why that organization or entity would need to do that sort of thing or would want to do that sort of thing, and then in the end, did it succeed in what you were trying to do? So some sorts of results, even if it's not like numeric ones. And
Did we lose Toni for a while there?
I think so.
All right, maybe we move on to the next question. And I can see some really interesting audience questions also pouring in. So maybe we'll give Toni time back to reconnect and maybe finish his part later. But Anu, if you could tell us a little bit more about, and this is an audience question, how much the recommendation matters in the recruiting process?
You mean recommendations from previous employers.
I think what they mean is internal referrals. And the audience member who asked this question, feel free to clarify what do you mean by recommendations from previous
Yeah.
internal employee referrals.
So if it's recommendations from previous employers or something like that, well, yeah, let's see if there is. It's another question. I don't think, at least we in the first phase when we go through applications, if it's somehow stated there, I think it's positive, but going through applications, we probably at that point at least don't go to references, but then of course if you mention something, then I can't see no harm, let's say that way.
Right, and I just saw that.
But if you meant something else with the recommendation.
Yeah, I think they clarified in the.
Yeah, like a reference. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's always a good thing if you sort of, maybe you know already something about the company, and in this case, we would ask your sort of permission to ask or talk with the persons, because we cannot go to other employees at Reaktor without your acknowledging that it's fine. But if it's fine to you, that we discuss with them, and you, for example, work with them previously, then it's a positive thing often, yeah.
All right, makes sense. Thank you. And I see that Toni has joined again.
Yes, sorry, there was some weird network problem. Should be fine now.
Yeah, so do you want to complete your answer? You were talking about client involvement or involvement of external stakeholders, let's say, and sort of highlighting that in your portfolio as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so that was the point when I lost lost me. So yeah, and maybe then for the CV, I think the most important thing or the one that I look for and we look for is how much relevance there is, even whether it be like work experience or school or personal projects or like a volunteering or stuff like that. And for the cover letter, then it's hard to name maybe one thing that I would look for, but I think it's most important that you mention what you're looking for and what you'd like to learn next, because without those sorts of things, it's always harder to evaluate if it would be a good fit. So maybe that's one thing to at least include, what you'd like to learn and what you'd like to do in the future.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. I hope the audience got sufficient answers for the first question at least. The second question we asked was about the importance of internal employee referrals. Would you like to throw some light on how Columbia Road handles that, or how important it is?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that?
So I think the question was about internal referrals from employees working within the company. How important is that?
Yeah, well, it's not, of course, a necessity, but it does help. I think if you do have if you know any people in the company, then the most important thing is to mention that in the application, because there's some laws and stuff that we cannot tell someone that a friend of theirs has applied if they don't kind of explicitly give us a permission to do that in the application. So if you know anyone, then definitely mention in the application that you'd like us to ask that person.
All right, I think that's a very important point that even I wasn't aware about. So thank you so much. So diving into the next question, this is also an audience question, and I'm going to try and include most audience questions, not to stick to the script that we already have. Could the panelists share a memorable application that you want to share or talk about, something that really stood out to you while screening applicants or interviewing them? And again, we start with Anu.
I'm sorry, I kind of or the connection was bad just in the first few words. So could you please repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So the question is whether you remember any memorable application or portfolio or anything about a specific candidate that stood out from the others, and you want to talk about that.
I don't know from the top of my mind. I think what I remember maybe the kind of applications that we have sort of gone through together in a team for one reason or another. I don't think there are some like any very what I would say very different kind of applications or something that would stand out from the crowd. But I don't know. I think the good ones are usually the ones that Toni kind of described, that it's short and concise and makes the point clear. And you don't have to go through a wall of text to go through them. So at least that's the kind of good application. But yeah, it also depends a bit about what kind of, if it's a visual designer position or if it's a UX or service design position. So not any one application that would stand out from my memory.
Right. Toni, do you have any such instances?
Maybe one application comes to mind. We weren't actually asking for video applications or mentioned anything towards that direction, but still one applicant wanted to send us a video application, and it was like it really stood out in the way that unlike traditional applications, they were then able to convey how good like presenters or like how natural people they are talking and so on. And well, now that she's now currently working with us, so that definitely did work for her. And maybe that's something that I would suggest that if there's some place for a link, I think it shouldn't hurt to make a video application if that would be something that is natural for you.
All right. So to generalize it, it means basically doing something above and beyond what the typical application asks you to do. Is that correct?
Yeah, and maybe not in the way that you would have to kind of spend a lot of more hours than otherwise. Even a short video can be really effective in kind of summarizing your application. But yeah, maybe still, if you do something differently and more, then it's of course easier to stand out probably.
All right. Makes sense. The next question I will ask a little bit about the interview process at your company. For instance, how many stages do you typically have? And are there any questions that you would advise candidates to already prepare for beforehand so that they're not caught unawares? Again, starting with Anu.
Yeah, so usually, at least again, I'm speaking from the summer designer point of view, but we have had 2 interview rounds. So in the first round, we usually get to know one another. So we'd like to understand who the applicant is, and we also hope that we can give a good and honest description about what it's like to work as a designer, and especially as a summer designer at Reaktor. And on top of that, we usually go through a case in the portfolio or some other project that they have chosen, and we go through it together, and that's how we sort of get an understanding of the design process and can talk about that. But it's mostly about getting to know one another. And then if after that interview, we still think that we're good matches for each other, then there might be a second round. And on between the rounds, we usually have an assignment, which depends on if the applicant is a visual or UX designer. And it usually takes maybe 2 to 3 hours, so it's not like you should spend a week on that. But then on the second round, we go through the assignment together. And that's maybe also how we get to talk more about the substance and the design in particular. And after that, it's actually decision time for us. So if everything is clear at that point, it might already be decision time. But at least previous years when we've had maybe approximately or on average 2 designers or something like that, then we have had all the designer interviews all together and then make the decisions. Yeah, so that's pretty much how it goes.
Right, thanks. And Toni, what about you?
Yeah, it's quite similar for us as well for the summer job part, but maybe a bit shorter in that we have this first interview round. Before that, actually, we sometimes utilize. It's a bit hard because it varies quite a bit, but we sometimes have a bit of phone screening before the interviews. If there's something that it can be just some of the applicants. If there's something that we'd like to kind of confirm or find out more before the interview rounds, and then we for the interview round we have 2 people from our side interviewing each person and talking for about an hour. And there's the kind of topics are, of course, like experience and learning so far, their design process and what they're looking for, what they enjoy, and so on. And then going through one case and seeing how their process was in that one, and a bit about the thinking, and maybe some like brain teasers or analytical questions thrown in there as well. So don't be thrown off if you hear some weird question in between normal questions. And yeah, then that's after the round of interviews, then we typically aim to make the decision at that point for some positions. Sometimes we do utilize another kind of phone call with the top ones, or maybe even some sort of a small task between the like best few candidates, but that's typically where we make the decisions for summer designers.
Right, thanks for sharing. Another question I have for the international participants here, and maybe we don't spend too much time, just quickly want your thoughts on how much knowing Finnish language matters for junior roles or for summer internships.
This year, we decided that we will, or you will just have to know Finnish or English. You'll have to sort of get through your days on with either language. Yeah, so either is fine.
Perfect. Toni?
The same for us.
Right, perfect. So there's also questions about how much experience summer jobs actually need. So do you want to weigh in on that? What kind of experience do you typically see, and do you need to have many projects beforehand?
Well, I think it's good to have some experience, but it doesn't necessarily have to be work experience. It's a plus if you do have work experience, but then it's just that you would need to be able to show something in the portfolio, and it can also be your own projects or school projects. But it's good if they are your own projects or school projects. It's good if it's some kind of real problem that you can solve, and as described before, explain the design process also in that case, and argue for the methodologies and so on.
Right. And I will quickly move on to the next question because we have a lot of audience questions and I want to take in as many as possible. So I'm trying to combine 2 questions here. If you're coming from, say, a service design background or a purely UX background and you don't have so much visual things to showcase, first question is, how do you showcase the work you currently have so that it appeals for UX/visual, more visual oriented roles as well? And the second question would be, should people or should junior designers actually spend a lot of time learning visual skills if they don't already have those? So we'll go to Anu again.
Okay. So if it's a UX or service design process, I guess I would sort of say what I mentioned before, that what's the most important thing is to represent the flows. So it's important that we understand what kind of steps the user goes through and what are the interactions. So it's not necessarily so much about design, the visual design, and also if it's more like a service design case, then also what is important is what the kind of process that you've gone through and why you chose to use certain methods and how they are shown in the end results and what the end results were in the first place and what was your role in all that and so on. So it's not necessary to have the visual skills. What matters most is the sort of representing your core skills.
So how does Columbia Road think about this issue?
Yeah, for us, we actually, if you're not, even if you're more focused on the service and the first phases of UX, still, because we don't really have a separate visual and service design, for example. Any designer can work in many different kinds of cases. So even if that's not your focus, we would still like to see something visual. So oftentimes in a case, even if it's more on a service design focus, you might end up at some point doing some layouts and so on, at least for prototyping. So we do want to see something visual. And if you don't have any visual projects there, you can always, like for the visual part, it's maybe that's the easiest, where you can just do your own projects. Or for example, there's this 100 days of UI thing where you can subscribe and then you get small tasks. So some applicants actually have completed some of those small visual tasks and then just uploaded those as like one project there in the portfolio to showcase that they can also do visual stuff, even if that's not their main focus and they're not the best at that.
All right. Yeah, I think that's a very concrete tip for everyone here. Next question is also from the audience. Is there a preferred way you like to receive the portfolio, or does the format of the CV and portfolio matter to you, in the sense of, especially with the portfolio, there are multiple platforms like Behance, Dribble, and some people have their own independent websites. So do you tend to prefer one over the other, or does it even matter at all?
We, at least, I don't think there are any more or less points given, whether it's a PDF or a website or a Behance site. So I think it's more, or the content is what counts.
All right, Toni.
Yeah, same goes for us. Maybe with a side note that many of the Behance or Dribble portfolios I see are more on the kind of site that showcase the end result and don't go through the the methods and the phases at all. So as long as you have the kind of more than just the end result, then any format is fine.
Good point.
All right, that makes sense. Another question I have from the audience, and they're asking, they don't have any experience working with developers. I think this will typically be most design school students. So how do you get over that to have that aspect on your portfolio as well? Starting with Anu.
Well, I think one thing is that you somehow demonstrate that you have been working in a team and communication skills. So it's understandable that you might not have the work experience of being in a team, especially work experience in a team of developers, but you might still have experience of working in a team and what kind of situations there are in a team and what kind of skills are important in that. So I think that's something that, or how it can be sort of not replaced, but yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. I agree. What do you think, Toni?
Yeah, it's a tricky point, but maybe also if you're even a bit interested, it might be worthwhile to try out a bit of programming or coding. just for the sake of it. Of course, if you're definitely not interested in that at all, then don't do it, because it you don't want to go in that direction professionally. But even if you don't want to end up coding for your for a living, then just kind of dabbling a bit as a like your own project, 10 hours or something, so just so you get the kind of basic understanding of what code is, that might even kind of communicate. And you can put that on the portfolio as well, even if it's not pretty, but that also communicates that you're kind of willing to learn how to kind of communicate with developers, understand those things, and so on.
Right. And there's also some questions about salaries, and should applicants mention their expected salary range in the cover letter? Starting with Anu.
I don't think it's that common maybe to mention it on the cover letter, but I think that's something that we'll be talking in the interviews. And I think we have as the basis the what is it called in English? But at least when I applied, I said that tried to see what is the tech suggestion for salaries, and then I suggested that, and I think that was well on the range. So I think what we use is the test recommendation, and then of course it's personal thing that what kind of experience you have and all that matters, but you can sort of have some kind of starting point looking at the test, or tech is the, I don't remember what it's in English, but Tekniikan Akateemiset, some kind of union recommendation. So that's a good starting point at least.
Right. And what do you think, Toni?
Yeah, same goes for us for the summer jobs, that we also base them on the union recommendation of the tech, regardless of your study background actually. And for the full-time positions, there's also no need to, even if you're like graduated and applying, there's no need to put it in the cover letter if you don't want to. We ask it on the first interview then anyway.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to round this up with a question that we actually had prepared, and that is about evaluating the culture fit. How do you exactly go about evaluating the culture fit of a particular candidate? And start with Anu.
I guess that when we talk about who you are and who we are, I guess in the discussion, we'll go through different kinds of questions that somehow then give both of us, like you as applicant and also for us, some idea of the cultural fit. But yeah, all kinds of things that are relevant, like the teamwork and how you approach work, and as we are a consultancy, and consultancy, for example, might not be for everybody, then we also try to give an honest idea of what the work is like. So I guess it's through discussion, so getting to know one another and discussion. I don't know if there are any like particular questions, but yeah.
Perfect. Toni?
Yeah, also no particular questions. I think for us it's especially for the full-time positions, there's always each candidate meets 4 to 6 of us before any hiring decisions, and so 4 to 6 of us get to meet the candidate as well, and then it's in the end it's a discussion between all of these people, and of course it's a bit subjective. The culture things are always a bit subjective, so that's why we aim for there to be multiple people and multiple perspectives into that. And maybe one aspect that we specifically ask about is things like what motivates the candidate, and if these kind of motivations and what they are looking for and so on, if they match, then that's already a big part of the culture thing, but then maybe the rest is harder to pin down on specific questions.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And I think that the audience now has a much better idea of what exactly companies are looking for in Helsinki. And with this, I will end the hiring panel, and thank you so much for being so honest with us. And thank you to the audience for being so participative, and you kept me on my toes. I had to look for questions and ask the right ones. So thank you so much. And now I will hand over to Marta, who will lead the discussion of the junior designers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I hope that you can hear me.
Yes.
Great. So yeah, thank you so much, Katie, for introducing and also for the panelists for such interesting discussions. I haven't heard many of the tips that were shared today, so that was very interesting, I think, for us as well being on this side. So super interesting to hear about that. So after this fruitful conversation with the hiring panelists, let's see what the junior designers say. We want to also see from their side what was their experience and share with you today. And I have the pleasure to introduce to you today Marta Adamska, who is junior product designer at Dunning Kruger and Associates. Nina Lukin, digital design consultant at Columbia Road, and Vivi Kiukkanen, junior service designer at Posti. And I really hope that I managed to mention your name correctly before starting our conversations. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. I hope that you can hear me. You are here. Can you confirm?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
I can hear you.
All right. I will then start with, I think, the first burning question that we probably all have, which is if you can share your journey into your first design job that you got. So we'll start with Marta.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's very nice to be here. I'm very humbled by being invited. We have quite a lot of people, I see, in participants. A bit of pressure. Anyway, so I'm going to make the story short. Basically, I'm originally from Poland, but I was studying service and industrial design degree in the UK. And I was there for 2 years, and there were two things that became obvious to me. First, that I just can't stand Scottish weather, and second, that I'm actually a very terrible industrial designer. But thankfully, there was an opportunity on the second year to go for an exchange, actually for 2 years. So first year I went to Portugal, and the second year I actually ended up in Aalto in Helsinki, when I got exposed to a lot of different things. And I think I also caught the startup bug. And I was doing everything apart from studying. Of course, I passed, but I was just very interested in like marketing, branding, visual design, how to run a startup, basically everything. And it kind of stayed with me after I graduated. So I graduated in the summer of 2019, and I immediately started working for a very promising, quite small startup. So I didn't have to go through any official like hiring process at the moment. But a lot of things changed when COVID happened. When COVID hit, I was still living in the UK, but then I lost my job due to the circumstance, and I moved back to Poland. And that's when I realized that I just need to figure something out for myself and start doing freelance and working with different startups and some more companies, and basically just trying to find a way to find a job. Also seeing people around getting cool positions, I kind of felt like, the pressure. And basically, it's a quite interesting fact that I ended up in Helsinki by accident. Like at some point I went to visit my friends in Latvia, and I just had a backpack full of summer clothes with me because I was supposed to leave Poland for 2 weeks. But then when I was there, I realized that I have nothing to lose, and I really loved Finland, so why not to try? And due to really amazing circumstances and people I met working online, I landed a flat for 3 months, and then I started applying for jobs. And yeah, and throughout this process, I got introduced to DK&A, and yeah, basically like that.
Wow, such a roller coaster that you shared.
It was a roller coaster. Yeah.
Wow, it was super interesting to hear that. All right, let's hear more also about the other speakers that we had. So, what about you, Nina? How was your first design experience? Your journey into the first design experience?
Yeah, so first of all, so super nice to see you all, and like thanks for the invite. So so I'm a digital design consultant currently at Columbia Road. So mainly I'm doing UX and UI and service design. but also a bit of everything else, like a bit of analytics and visuals and stuff. So in school, I studied cognitive science and UX and psychology and usability, that kind of things, in University of Helsinki and in Aalto University, and a bit of UX in London as well. And while studying for a while, I also ended up doing design projects for like small companies and some hackathons, and like wherever I could find interesting projects where I could like be like a design lead or do something really responsible and take lots of like ownership over design things. And like I really strive for those. And I also worked in a startup for a while in the end of my studies. And besides design, like I was always really into like business stuff and kind of strategic thinking, and kind of this really like working with multidisciplinary like teams with like marketing people and dev and like business people, and like learning a bit from everything. So that's what I really wanted to do. So I have been screening Columbia Road for a while I was studying, because I learned that Columbia Road combines a lot of like things that are interesting to me in their projects. So I ended up applying for summer jobs a while back, and but I actually ended up starting full-time a while after applying to summer jobs. So yeah, this is my first full-time job. So that's in a short way, that's my journey to Columbia Road.
Quite a journey again. I think many of you are sharing today an entire months or years of working before actually getting the first job. And what about you, Vivi?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm also very happy to be here. Yeah, I'm working at Posti as a junior designer, and I'm doing UX and UI and service design. My journey is that I am from the Aalto Business School, so I applied there after high school, and I was really into marketing, and that was my major in my bachelor studies. And I also like applied. I did a traineeship to a marketing agency, and there I realized that maybe it's not kind of my thing, that I want to influence not the communication part, but actually the service, and that got me interested to service design. And then I applied to IDPM, which was my major. And then then I have done like IDPM projects, because the education includes some service design projects. Then I also found some hidden kind of like junior position in this kind of lab set company that is creating these playgrounds to children and outdoor exercising stuff. So I was there helping the design team. And yeah, then I just 1 year ago, I was like, I need to before I graduate, I want to get a job. And I think design could be a job for me. And so I was like, I started this process. I applied for a mentor, and I really was like determined to get a design job. And then I noticed Posti's the job kind of like description, and it was kind of like, it really fit well to me. So I applied, and that paid off.
Nice. We're happy that it paid off and that you are here today.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all for sharing all these great and actually quite long journeys. What do you think from your perspectives is the one experience, or more experiences maybe, that helped you the most to get your current job? And I'm asking this from the perspective of potential applicants that are looking for tips and tricks on how to stand out during this entire hiring process. So we'll start maybe with you, Marta.
I think that's always a tricky question. And I was actually thinking a little bit before this event what to answer the question like that. But I think There are a few things, but the thing that helped me the most, I think, is finding a mentor, or at least finding a way that will feel you like more empowered. Because I know that it's very draining to like apply for jobs and feel confident in yourself. A lot of us have imposter syndrome, and it's just a very tricky thing. And I think at the end of the day, when you're applying, you need to first believe in what you did, enjoy the projects you did, and present the projects that you did, and somehow get some validation, potentially from mentors or maybe sparring buddies, that the work you did is very valuable. Because sometimes the more you look into it, the more you work on your CV and portfolio, the more you hate it. At least like I was having those issues for a long time. So I would say that the key thing is to be, authentic with who you are, and actually, I know as easy as it sounds, actually believing in it. So yeah, I would say, and conveying it, I always believe that it's quite hard to like convey it on a paper when you write CV, but I think that we all feel like when you wrote it like well, like when you excited to, to show what you did, then I think that's a really good sign. It always stands out because people kind of feel the same energy. So yeah, that's what I think.
Mhm. Indeed, I think it's very important this to have confidence in your skills and maybe to try to validate them with someone. What is your perspective on this, Nina?
Yeah, I think I have to mention two things. Like, first of all, it's kind of my philosophy that like if you try and like believe in yourself and stuff, and you just go to places, some like good stuff will happen eventually, and that's like what happened to me. And I was like one night I was hanging out at like Aldo, like startup sauna. I was just like drinking beer, but like I ended up getting my first job because somebody was impressed when I talked about UX, and they were like, yeah, we actually need a UX designer to our startup. And that was purely by coincidence, like totally. And actually had ended up having like huge effect because when I had even like 4 months of like yeah, beer pays off, good comment. So I ended up having 4 months contract in a startup, and it was really kind of I guess not like impressive, but like people really valued it. Like recruiters really liked it, and I had like some contracts. And the other thing was like to kind of make myself believe that I'm actually UX designer, was like take any course or any kind of like long-term like program or anything that teaches you the UX like workflow and cycle. So like you are kind of confident that you can start working with any problem with your workflow that you have learned from like some experts or teachers. I went to like London for a 3-month course for that, but you could definitely do it online. So like just like getting the flow, your workflow in like a really good state that you are like actually confident that you can do lots of stuff. So those two things.
Very nice that you mentioned that, and I think that getting out of your comfort zone and even mentioning what you want during beer when it pays off, as Paula mentioned, it's super important and relevant to just be out there, mention what you want, and try to kind of gain experience as you go. Is the way to try to do it. What about you, Vivi?
Yeah, I agree with all the other panelists, Nina and Marta, that the confidence is very important. And I think having a mentor or someone who is already working in the field will like helps a lot. My mentor is a service designer, so she helped me a lot when I was looking for a job. And that also helped me to kind of like find my strengths and like kind of believe in myself. And yeah, I think like getting projects, like some projects where you can like test the design process, that's very important, like having the need and like identifying the problem and like gathering insights and like making conclusions. Like if you can get like few projects, I had 5 projects that I was able to show to the recruiters, and I had taken some pictures of the projects or like collected some material from them. So that really helped me to having like kind of like, it's important to have something to show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly. Still come with some concrete deliverables, even though
yeah,
you are at the beginning. I think we can all think of ways to somehow design something or just come with a prototype, even if it is in the subway or at a store that we've seen in Helsinki or somewhere, just to have a small project that we've done. And I think, as you mentioned, it's still important. And one question that we have from the audience that I think it's quite relevant is that you mentioned having a mentor. And I'm curious if you can describe, for example, how did you find your mentor, if you had one, of course? And yeah, any tips for us to find a good mentor to support us in this whole process of feeling like an imposter throughout our whole experience?
Yeah, actually, one of the reasons I'm very happy to be here today is that like I can relate to this situation so much. And I was at this stage of like I'm coming from the art school, like design environment, but when I wanted to transition more towards product design, I just didn't know people that could mentor me because everybody was either doing their own thing or I just didn't know these people. And there is this website called adplists.com. I'm not sure if you ever heard about it. I found them through LinkedIn, one of those nights when I just totally gave up, you know, when you just like eat chocolate and just give up on everything. You're like, I'm done. And I came across them. I think they launched over pandemic, maybe a bit earlier. Basically, it's the website where you have mentors from a lot of fields of design from top companies. So like Google, Facebook, IBM, the companies you can imagine, and they are there willing to talk to you. And I didn't have portfolio done, like I was a mess, complete mess. And I booked 2 sessions. Some of them were at like 3 a.m. because those people were living in the US or on more normal hours as well. And it's actually helped me out a lot to get more confidence, to get good sparring, to also explore some alternatives, because you can just tell them straight away that you just want to understand how they work and whether that fits to what you need or not. So I would say if you don't know anybody from your network, just check out the website and book some sessions and talk to them, because they're lovely and they are there to help. And yeah, it helped me a lot. So
Super insightful tip. I saw them, I think, or I noticed them on some site, but didn't know that they are actually on and they are giving insights. So very interesting to see. Thank you for sharing that to us. Nina, what about you? Did you have any mentors or any personalities in your experience that helped you throughout the way? And if yes, how did you find them?
Yeah, I actually never had a mentor or anybody to teach me from my own network. I actually tried to have a mentor, but for some reason it didn't like work out. We were like maybe had like 2 different like viewpoints or what something else. But like I had a really influential like teacher, like the UX course I did, and we had a really amazing teacher. And I really believe that UX should be learned by that somebody who is expert teaches you and like corrects you when you do something wrong. And it's like really by trial and error. And you really have to learn like what not to do from somebody who has been working in the business for so long and can tell you like which direction to go to. So I really believe that like but I think you could have it in like any kind of context for a, like online course or school course, like wherever you can have some dedicated teacher who can give feedback about your designs and like really like understand your thinking process and like help you kind of develop your thinking, because I believe that like UX design is kind of really philosophical as well, and you really need to learn how to think.
Yes, indeed. I think it can get pretty messy. The whole process, it's so complicated, so many stakeholders involved. So it would be nice maybe even to message our teachers or whoever we think we have nearby um, to get to them. And what about you, Vivi?
Yes, I've first tried to find a mentor through Aldo, but it didn't work out. But then I applied to this mentorship program organized by like Finland's like business, like Suomen economic, like Finland's economy. I don't know what's in English, like Master of Business and Administration. So they had like very good mentoring program. So I found my mentor through that. But I think like you can find them through courses. And I think just reaching out, if you're very passionate and interested about this topic, I think like many people are passionate also and want to help you. So I think it also might work if you just were in touch with some person and asked to
I
meet
fully
for
agree.
coffee
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
And also, I like what Paulo mentioned, that there are some good designers in this chat as well that could help people. So even being present to this type of events, I think it's a really a really nice way to actually get to know people and get to know maybe your future mentor. Who knows? Being proactive and getting out of your zone matters a lot, especially when finding a good mentor. All right. I'm trying to get closer to the last questions as I am mindful of the time. So I'm curious to know. I think that some of us here are as well. What did you think you have done to stand out during the interview process or during the whole hiring process for the company? So why do you think they chose you among others? And I know it's a complicated question, but from your personal experience, what do you think made you stand out?
Oh my, I think I ask this question myself every day. Like before mentioned imposter syndrome, it's hardcore. So I think when I was applying, basically I was referred by the previous client. So that already gave me some of the like chance to start interviewing and stuff. But I was at this stage when I was like almost very close to give up. Like I was just like, I don't wanna like do it anymore. And I think that's when I also loosened up a little bit and just decided to not hide the fact that I might not know the software is the best in the world. Now my background is more service and UX design, and I'm very curious to try the little things. But I of course have some weaknesses, but I just knew that I would like to become product designer, and I think it kind of translated through my like enthusiasm and also of course knowledge that I had and projects that I picked that I really really liked, that I felt very passionate about. And I think this definitely helped. But yeah, I wish there was like a golden key that I would use to open all the doors. But yeah, I think it's honestly just like believing that what you know is enough. Of course, educating yourself, but like don't pushing yourself to the point when you just like burn out before you actually get a job, because that's not the point. You should be in a good mental health space to, because then so you can enjoy your job. And I also believe that if you don't get a job, it's okay. It may not be your fit. And sometimes it's like maybe you wouldn't even enjoy this job. So there is no point of like pretending. And yeah, just keep on going. But I would say to like be genuinely like enthusiastic and authentically you. Yeah.
All right, very nice of you to say that. What about you, Nina? What do you think made you stand out during the hiring process?
I think it helped a lot that I had already gained some confidence in like design projects and like in school projects and that kind of stuff, that I could like present myself as UX designer and be like, like I don't know what I am. It really helps. And like I kind of believe in kind of fake it till you make it, especially if you have imposter syndrome as I did. That like you just start like kind of pushing yourself in the mindset that yeah I'm a UX designer, and so then everybody else will believe it as well. And yeah, I guess that helps. Other thing like practical stuff was like Columbia Road, for example, attended lots of like recruitment fairs and like these kind of like contact forum and Aalto University and Helsinki University, all these kind of events where like there is lots of companies presenting stuff to students. And I think I went to each and every one of those and said hi to Columbia Road people And in few years, they actually remembered my face and like said hello because they recognized me. And honestly, I think that's a really good strategy. Like just like getting to like also showing that you are interested in the company, but also like they know your face and maybe your name even. Like it's way easier to recruit somebody who is clearly interested and is like a nice person also you have chatted before. So that's maybe my number one tip.
So making yourself visible as much as possible in front of employers, basically.
Yeah.
All right. And moving on to Vivi, what is your experience of standing out from the crowd?
Yes, well, the first thing I would say that like make sure that the job actually interests you, because that will give you motivation and passion, and that will come through. At least for me, the kind of like the job description was so good and motivating and matched me so well that made me, because I didn't have a portfolio made or CV like updated or a job application made. So that kind of like that I wanted the job so badly, so I made those. So I invested the time, and I wanted to invest because I was so motivated to get the job. So maybe that kind of like would be the first thing, to be motivated, and you cannot come up with motivation, so you need to have it. And also like I prepared and invest a lot of time, and it was terrible during the recruitment process. The recruitment process took like 4 or 5 months, so it was like very like
Wow.
terrible to have like I put everything in, so it was like I really like spent a lot of time to the recruitment process. And yeah, like I think that came through. And also like for the assignment that I got, I actually interviewed people, because there was this service design project like as a case. So I actually like interviewed people and made the whole process, and that took a lot of time. And yeah, it's not easy. But I think like that I got the job because I just like worked so hard, because I was so motivated.
Yeah, and it's so important what you said, because I think it's important to treat this whole hiring process as a job in itself. Sometimes it really takes like hours a day, maybe, if we want to make good applications or a good portfolio that kind of gets like all our calendar. It's like basically having a part-time job in itself, the whole application process.
Yes, and one thing, like very good tip, is to show your CV and show your the kind of cover letter and your portfolio to other people before you are sending it to the recruiters, like just to make sure that like get the sanity check. Yeah.
All right. Very great tips. And I'm aware of the time, so I just want to ask one last questions for you, which is we are trying to look a bit into the future and want to ask you, what skills are you currently learning at the moment or want to learn in the near future that you think will help you develop your career? So Marta, the stage is yours.
So I'm learning coding front end for now, because there was one of the questions if you need to code. Not necessarily, but I think it's really valuable to at least understand, because then you can speak the same language with developers. And this is what I'm trying to learn more right now. Yeah.
Interesting. What about you, Nina?
Yeah, at the moment I'm learning like Google Analytics to become better at it, and also like business stuff and strategic thinking. Can I really quickly answer to the chat, like, because like lots of people are talking about like getting rejected and stuff. Like I also didn't get this job in my first application, and like it's not the end of the world. You can still end up in the place you want to.
All right. What about you, Vivi?
Yeah, I feel like I'm learning all the time different things. So I am not a visual designer, so but I like it. I get a flow state when I'm doing it. So that's like the thing I'm learning UX using Figma and UI. So those are the things that I'm like working on the most at the moment. And also like, yeah, I'm trying to like gather books that I should read about like service design. But mainly like visual design is now like the biggest thing, and working with developers and in a team. And yeah, those things.
All right. So basically getting a job does not kill us. Not getting a job does not kill us either. And it's important to learn continuously, basically. So never stopping, as Paul also mentioned in the beginning. We see now from our panelists that indeed this matters a lot when working. Even from junior to senior, we just never stop learning, basically. So maybe that's a good news for some, a bad news for some, but that's the reality out there. We should strive to improve our skills all the time. So I think that our session ends here for now. I'm conscious of the time. So thank you so much for all these honest conversations that we had currently, and for sharing all your personal, I would say, experience that helps us, first of all, maybe feel a bit better with ourselves in these challenging times, and understand that maybe it's not our fault, or we still have hope that we will get a job if we are consistent, and if we are always working on us, on ourselves. So your lessons were really valuable. Thank you so much for joining us today, ladies, and for sharing your all experiences with us today.